Captain Tahian Park stared at the alien vessel through the viewscreen of the Republic flagship Serenity. Its surface gleamed like polished obsidian, reflecting the stars around it. 3 months ago, humanity had detected the first signals from an alien civilization. Now they faced the Allens in person. "They're requesting permission to board," said Communications Officer Mina Kim, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Taehyun nodded. "Granted. Let's show them humanity's best face." The first Allen to step through the airlock stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its skin shimmered with iridescent scales in blues and greens, 4 arms hanging at its sides. Where a human would have a face, the Allen had a smooth, featureless dome with 3 slits that glowed with amber light. "Welcome to the Republic flagship Serenity," Taehyun said, bowing slightly. "I am Captain Taehyun Park." The alien made a series of clicking sounds. A device on its chest translated, "I am Nexus 12. We observe your vessel contains weapons systems." Science Officer Ju Li stepped forward. "Defensive only. We come in peace." "Peace," the Allen repeated. This concept is unfamiliar. The delegation learned that the Allens had evolved in a harsh environment where competition for resources was constant. Their society knew only conquest and submission. War was their natural state. The concept of mercy, sparing an enemy who could fight another day, struck them as absurd, even dangerous. "We wish to learn this mercy," Nexus 12 told them during the 3rd day of discussions. "Our record shows species that practice it often flourish in ways we cannot comprehend." Taehyun exchanged glances with Mina and Ju. Teaching the Allens mercy could transform their civilization. It could also make them dangerous in ways they couldn't imagine. "We'll teach you," Taehyun finally said. "But understanding mercy requires more than words. You must experience it." As the Serenity departed for Earth with a delegation of Allens aboard, Taehyun couldn't shake the feeling that they were making history. But whether it would be remembered as humanity's greatest achievement or its fatal mistake remained to be seen. The Earth Diplomatic Center in New Seoul buzzed with activity as the Allen delegation arrived. Diplomat Sun Wukang had been chosen to lead what the media called the Mercy Project, teaching an alien species the concept of compassion. "Their society is built on pure Darwinian principles," Sun Wu explained to his team. "They've never developed the idea that helping the weak could benefit the whole." The Allens observed human society with unnerving intensity. They watched medical professionals save lives. They studied children sharing toys in playgrounds. They examined court cases where criminals received second chances. Nexus 12 seemed particularly fascinated. 6 months after first contact, the first human delegation prepared to visit the Allen homeworld, Nexus Prime. Captain Taehyun Park would lead the mission, along with Ju Li, anthropologist Haijin Ba, and 12 other specialists. "They've embraced mercy faster than we expected," Haijin said during the pre-mission briefing. "Their society is already showing signs of transformation." "Too fast," Ju countered. "Evolutionary psychology doesn't work that way. You don't overwrite millions of years of development in 6 months." "Maybe their brains are more adaptable than ours," suggested Taehyun. Ju shook her head. "Or maybe they're learning something we didn't intend to teach." The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 weeks. When they arrived, the humans were stunned by what they found. The Allen civilization had already begun incorporating mercy into their society. Weaker members, once culled without hesitation, now received care. Resources were shared more equitably. Nexus 12, now a high official in the new Allen government, gave them a tour of the capital city. "Before, our buildings were purely functional. Now, look." It gestured to new structures with flowing lines and artistic elements. "Beauty serves no survival purpose, yet it makes life worth protecting." That night, at a formal reception, Haijin found herself speaking with an Allen scientist named Nexus 23. "How does it feel?" she asked. "This change in your society?" The Allen was silent for a moment. "It hurts," it finally said. To understand mercy is to understand suffering in a new way. Before, suffering was merely information. Avoid this, defeat that. Now, suffering has weight. That's empathy, Hygen explained. It's the foundation of mercy. Yes, we are learning that mercy has a price. We wonder if humans understand how high that price can be. Later, Ju cornered Taehyun at the reception. Something's wrong, she whispered. Their brain chemistry is changing too rapidly. It's like watching thousands of years of human evolution compressed into months. Isn't that good? Taehyun asked. Not if their brains can't handle it. And definitely not if they're learning something beyond what we're teaching. 1 year after first contact, Earth and Nexus Prime had established regular diplomatic relations. Trade routes were opening. Knowledge was being shared. The galaxy watched in amazement as two radically different species found common ground through the concept of mercy. Dr. Jiho Yang, a psychologist assigned to the embassy on Nexus Prime, was the first to notice the problem. They're experiencing unprecedented rates of mental illness, he reported during an emergency call with Earth Command. Depression, anxiety, even suicidal tendencies, conditions that didn't exist in their species before. It's the price of empathy, said Admiral Min Hee-yoon, who had replaced Taehyun as mission commander. They're feeling the weight of their past actions. It's more than that, Joe insisted. They're developing a new emotion, something beyond empathy or guilt. Something I can't classify. On the streets of the Alan capital, the changes were becoming visible. Some Alans had begun covering their sensory slits, their equivalent of eyes, when in public. Others engaged in ritualistic behaviors, repeating motions for hours. The most concerning development was the emergence of silence groups. Alans who stopped speaking entirely, communicating only through written messages. One such message, delivered to the human embassy, read, "Mercy reveals the abyss beneath all action. How do you live with this knowledge?" Ju Li, now heading the scientific division of the embassy, called an urgent meeting with the human leadership. "We've made a terrible mistake," she said, spreading brain scans across the table. The Alans didn't evolve the psychological structures to process mercy and empathy gradually, as humans did. Their minds are trying to reconcile millions of years of evolutionary programming with concepts that fundamentally contradict it. "What are you saying?" Minhee asked. "I'm saying we've infected them with mercy, and their minds are breaking under the strain." 2 years after first contact, the crisis on Nexus Prime could no longer be contained. The Alan government, once embracing the concept of mercy, now struggled with its consequences. 30% of the population had joined silence groups. Productivity plummeted. Some regions reported food shortages as workers abandoned their posts, overcome by what humans now recognized as a species-wide existential crisis. They can't unknow what we've taught them, Sunwoo explained to the Earth Security Council. Mercy gave them a new lens to view their past actions. They look back at thousands of years of their history and see nothing but unnecessary cruelty. On Nexus Prime, Jiwoo worked tirelessly with Alan scientists to find a solution. They developed medications to stabilize Alan brain chemistry, but the treatments only masked symptoms temporarily. The turning point came when an entire Alan city committed mass suicide. Over 1 million individuals, connected through their version of a neural network, simultaneously chose to end their lives. The note they left behind contained just one word in human language: sorry. Earth governments debated intervention. Some argued for direct military occupation of Nexus Prime to maintain order. Others suggested a complete withdrawal, allowing the Alans to find their own path through the crisis. Nexus 12, once the greatest advocate for learning mercy, addressed humanity through an emergency broadcast. "We understand now why mercy came so late to your species," it said, its translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in its voice. "It is not a gift. It is a burden that requires centuries to learn how to carry. You gave us this weight all at once, and our minds cannot bear it." As the broadcast ended, Reports came in of armed conflicts erupting across Nexus Prime. A faction of Allans, calling themselves the Unmerciful, had begun attacking silence groups, claiming to free them from the human poison. Earth's leaders watched in horror as their greatest diplomatic achievement descended into chaos. 3 years after first contact, Nexus Prime had become a battlefield. The Allan civilization had fractured into 3 major factions. The Embracers accepted mercy fully and sought to rebuild their society around it, despite the psychological cost. Led by Nexus 12, they controlled the major cities and technological centers. The Unmerciful rejected mercy entirely, viewing it as a human weapon designed to weaken them. They held the agricultural regions and resource-rich territories. The Silence withdrew from the conflict, forming isolated communes where they sought to process their new emotions through ritual and meditation. Captain Taehyun Park, brought out of retirement for his expertise with the Allans, led a humanitarian mission to evacuate human personnel and sympathetic Allans from contested zones. "This isn't just a civil war," he told his crew as their ship entered Nexus Prime's atmosphere. "It's an evolutionary war. They're fighting over the very direction their species should take." On the surface, they found devastation. Once gleaming cities lay in ruins. The elegant architecture inspired by human concepts of beauty had been deliberately targeted by the Unmerciful, who saw it as a symbol of contamination. They located Juwu Li in an underground research facility, where she and a team of Embracer scientists worked on a neural treatment they hoped would help Allans integrate mercy without psychological collapse. "It's too late for a gentle solution," she told Taehyun as they hurried through the rubble-strewn streets toward the evacuation point. "The Unmerciful are winning. They're systematically eliminating anyone who shows compassion." A squad of Unmerciful soldiers ambushed them 3 blocks from their destination. As plasma fire cut through the air around them, Taehyun saw an Unmerciful soldier take aim at Juwu. Without hesitation, an Embracer Allan named Nexus 50 threw itself into the line of fire. The plasma bolt tore through its body, but it had saved Juwu's life. The Unmerciful squad leader approached the dying Embracer. "Why sacrifice yourself for a human?" it demanded. "Because," the Embracer replied, its voice failing, "mercy makes us more than we were." The Unmerciful soldier stood motionless for a long moment. Then, inexplicably, it lowered its weapon and allowed the humans and remaining Embracers to pass. As they reached the evacuation ship, Taehyun looked back at the burning city. "What have we done to them?" he whispered. 4 years after first contact, the conflict on Nexus Prime had evolved into something humans hadn't anticipated. Reports indicated that the Unmerciful, despite their rejection of mercy, were showing signs of being affected by it. "It's spreading like a cognitive virus," explained Hyejin Bai to the Earth Security Council. "Even those Allans who consciously reject mercy are unconsciously internalizing it. They can't unlearn what their species now knows." The Unmerciful leadership, recognizing this threat, had taken dramatic action. They'd begun a program of neural modification, literally cutting out the portions of their brains that processed the new emotions. Earth governments debated intervention. Some argued that humanity had a responsibility to help the Allans through this evolutionary crisis. Others maintained that further interference would only make things worse. The decision was made for them when an Allan warship appeared in Earth orbit. Its commander, a heavily modified Unmerciful, delivered a chilling message. "Humans, you have weaponized mercy against us. You have infected us with weakness that spreads from mind to mind. We cannot defeat this plague through conventional warfare. Therefore, we must eliminate its source." The ship launched a single projectile toward Earth before being destroyed by defense systems. The projectile contained not explosives but data, a virus designed to attack human information networks. As it spread through Earth's systems, its purpose became clear. It wasn't trying to destroy technology, but to access all human cultural records related to mercy, compassion, and empathy. Literature, philosophy, religious texts, historical accounts, and it was systematically corrupting them. "They're trying to poison the well," said Mina Kim, now Admiral of Earth's Defense Fleet. "They believe if they can corrupt humanity's understanding of mercy, the infection on their world will lose its power." In a secure facility beneath New Seoul, Sun Wukang met with Nexus 12, who had been evacuated to Earth as the conflict worsened. "Your people call mercy a plague," Sun Wu said. "Is that truly how you see it now?" "Some do," the Alan replied. "But they misunderstand. It is not mercy itself that destroys us, but the speed of its introduction. The gulf between what we were and what we now understand is too great to bridge in one generation." Then what's the solution? There may not be one. At least, not for those of us alive today. We may be the sacrificial generation, suffering so that our descendants can truly understand what your species learned over thousands of years. 5 years after first contact, Earth faced judgment. The Galactic Concord, a coalition of spacefaring species previously unknown to humans, had been observing the situation with the Allans from the beginning. Now they call humanity to account. The trial took place on a neutral space station at the edge of the solar system. Captain Taehyun Park, Admiral Mina Kim, and diplomat Sun Wukang represented Earth. Various Allan factions sent their own representatives. The Concord Arbiter, a being of shifting mist contained within a crystalline shell, addressed the assembled delegates. "We have observed your species' interaction and find it troubling. Humans, you shared a concept with the Allans without understanding its impact on their evolutionary psychology. Allans, your species embraced this concept without considering the consequences." Evidence was presented from both sides. The humans argued they had acted with good intentions, genuinely believing mercy would benefit the Allans. The Allans, even the unmerciful, acknowledged that humanity hadn't understood what they were doing. On the third day of the trial, a new faction of Allans requested permission to speak. They called themselves the Integrated, individuals who had found a way to incorporate mercy without succumbing to existential despair. Their spokesperson, identified only as Nexus Nu, addressed the court. "We represent the future of our species. Through great suffering, we have learned to balance what we were with what we now understand. Mercy has transformed us, yes, but transformation is not destruction unless we make it so." Nexus Nu turned to the human representatives. "You taught us mercy, then watched in horror as it rotted through our society, destroying what we had been. But from that rot, something new is growing. We ask not for reparations, but for patience, and for your trust that what emerges will be neither human nor what Allans were, but something worthy of both legacies." The Arbiter's decision was complex. Humans were restricted from sharing further cultural concepts with developing species without Concord supervision. The Allans were granted resources to manage their transition but required to contain their conflict to their own system. As the delegates prepared to depart, Taehyun approached Nexus Nu. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "All the suffering your people have endured?" "Ask me in 100 years," the Allan replied. "That is how long it will take to know if mercy truly saved us or merely changed how we destroy ourselves." 5 years after first contact, Earth faced judgment. The Galactic Concord, a coalition of spacefaring species previously unknown to humans, had been observing the situation with the Allans from the beginning. Now they call humanity to account. The trial took place on a neutral space station at the edge of the solar system. Captain Taehyun Park, Admiral Mina Kim, and diplomat Sun Wukang represented Earth. Various Allan factions sent their own representatives. The Concord Arbiter, a being of shifting mist contained within a crystalline shell, addressed the assembled delegates. "We have observed your species' interaction and find it troubling. Humans, you shared a concept with the Allans without understanding its impact on their evolutionary psychology. Allans, your species embraced this concept without considering the consequences." Evidence was presented from both sides. The humans argued they had acted with good intentions, genuinely believing mercy would benefit the Allans. The Allans, even the unmerciful, acknowledged that humanity hadn't understood what they were doing. On the third day of the trial, a new faction of Allens requested permission to speak. They called themselves the Integrated, individuals who had found a way to incorporate mercy without succumbing to existential despair. Their spokesperson, identified only as Nexus Nu, addressed the court. "We represent the future of our species. Through great suffering, we have learned to balance what we were with what we now understand. Mercy has transformed us, yes, but transformation is not destruction unless we make it so." Nexus Nu turned to the human representatives. "You taught us mercy, then watched in horror as it rotted through our society, destroying what we had been. But from that rot, something new is growing. We ask not for reparations, but for patience, and for your trust that what emerges will be neither human nor what Allens were, but something worthy of both legacies." The arbiter's decision was complex. Humans were restricted from sharing further cultural concepts with developing species without Concord supervision. The Allens were granted resources to manage their transition but required to contain their conflict to their own system. As the delegates prepared to depart, Taehyun approached Nexus Nu. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "All the suffering your people have endured." "Ask me in 100 years," the Allen replied. "That is how long it will take to know if mercy truly saved us or merely changed how we destroy ourselves." 10 years after first contact, Taehyun Park stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Hope, watching as Nexus Prime grew larger in the view screen. This would be his final mission before retirement, a symbolic return to the world humanity had inadvertently thrown into chaos. Much had changed in the decade since the trial of humanity. The civil war on Nexus Prime had gradually subsided, not through victory but exhaustion. The Integrated had grown in influence, their balanced approach drawing supporters from both the embracers and the unmerciful. Earth had changed too. The encounter with the Allens and the subsequent intervention of the Galactic Concord had humbled humanity. They now moved more cautiously in the galaxy, aware that their ideas could be as dangerous as their weapons. The diplomatic party included familiar faces: Juwoo Lee, her hair now streaked with gray; Minna Kim, recently retired from admiral duties; and Haijin Ba, who had written the definitive text on Allen psychological evolution. "Look there," said Juwoo, pointing at the planet's surface as they approached. "The restoration projects are working." Areas that had been battlefields were now covered with new growth, not just rebuilt cities but ecological projects that blended Allen efficiency with a new appreciation for beauty and sustainability. Their landing site was a memorial garden built on the ruins of the city where the first mass suicide had occurred. They were greeted by a delegation of integrated Allens, led by a familiar figure. "Nexus 12, Taehyun said with surprise. "You survived." "Not as I was," the Allen replied. Its appearance had changed. 2 of its 4 arms had been replaced with mechanical prosthetics, and a pattern of luminescent markings covered its body, indicating extensive neural modifications. "But enough of me remains to remember our beginning." The Allen led them through the garden, explaining how it represented their new philosophy. Hardy native plants grew alongside introduced species, neither dominating the other. Structures combining the angular efficiency of traditional Allen architecture with the flowing lines inspired by human aesthetics housed memorial exhibits and research facilities. "We call this place balanced growth," Nexus 12 explained. "It symbolizes what we have become. We have not abandoned our nature, but we have tempered it with what you taught us." The central monument was a sphere of interlocking metal bands, constantly shifting and reconfiguring themselves. Representing, Nexus 12 explained, the ongoing evolution of Allen society. "Was it worth it?" Taehyun asked, echoing the question he had asked Nexus Nu years before. "The cost was immeasurable," the Allen replied. "1/3 of our population did not survive the transition. But look at what remains." It gestured toward a group of young Allens tending to the garden. Their movements were different from the Allens Taehyun had first met, less rigid, more fluid. They worked cooperatively without the strict hierarchy that had once defined their species. They are born with the capacity for mercy, Nexus 12 said. What was for us a painful grafting is natural to them. They will never know the world as it was, only what it is becoming. As their visit concluded, the humans and Allans gathered for a formal ceremony. A new treaty would establish regular cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation, and mutual defense agreements. Nexus 12 addressed the assembled delegates. 10 years ago, we accused humans of infecting us with mercy, then making us watch as it rotted through our civilization. We were correct in our accusation but wrong in our understanding. What we experienced was not rot but metamorphosis, the necessary breakdown of the old to make way for the new. The Allan turned to face Taeyeon directly. Captain Park, you once asked if I believed mercy had saved us. Now I can answer. Mercy did not save what we were. It destroyed us. And from that destruction, it has saved what we might become. As the Hope departed Nexus Prime, Taeyeon stood alone on the observation deck, watching the planet recede into the distance. He thought of all that had been lost and all that had been gained. To growth through destruction, he whispered, raising an imaginary glass to the stars. And to the mercy that makes it possible.